Okay, good evening, everybody. I am Holly Broadfoot, and um, I am the Experiential Learning Director here at CUNY SPS. And tonight I'm going to talk to you a bit about our Credit for Prior Learning program. And um, hopefully, when you finish this, you will understand how this can really save you a lot of time, save you some money, and kind of give you what will be your next steps if you are wanting to participate with this. A little bit of housekeeping, which you've seen some in the chat. If you have questions about CPL, those sorts of things, Sydney will be happy to help you. And you can use the Q&A feature to type in your question. And if you have a technical issue, just put that in the chat. And I'm gonna have to hold on one second. Okay, I had a bear in the background, and that was going to drive me insane. So I'm certain it's going to drive all of you. So if you have a technical issue, um, not a bear in the background, but a technical issue such as you cannot hear or something else is going on, then just put that in the regular chat. Bears in the background, you'll have to kind of do that on your own. So, fall orientation events. You have your Write Like a Pro, essays for academic integrity, and AI. And then you will also have your Start Strong, resources to help you thrive at CUNY SPS. So let's get into it. Credit for prior learning. This is basically what we're going to go over. What I'm going to try to do is spend about 20-30 minutes talking about CPL, give you kind of the overview of it, how it works, and then the last 30 minutes or however long you need, I will be answering general questions. And I'm also got a list of questions that were asked beforehand, and so I'll go over those as well that some people had. So basically, why CPL? Why do we work so much on this? Why is this important? And basically, our primary goal is to establish ways that you can earn credit without sitting in the classroom. And what we have found is that you will graduate sooner and you will save money. We have done studies going back the past 6 years, and we compare every term the percentage of people who graduate with an undergraduate degree who have some form of credit for prior learning and the percentage that don't. And every single term, more people graduate if they have some form of CPL. So if you have CPL, even if it's 3 credits, you're going to be more likely to graduate. So basically, this is kind of your superpower. You're going to fast track your degree, and that could be saving a term. We have had people who have saved 2 or 3 years. The other thing this can do is it can help you highlight your skills so that you then can not only graduate faster, you will have something that can move you into a new job or move you up wherever you are, and you will obviously save money. So this is kind of what we'll be going over. We have basically 3 big buckets of what we call types of CPL. They're exams, and I'm going to go over each one of these in a little more detail, but they're exams. There are what we call pre-evaluated certifications. You'll see on our website that's called non-collegiate learning. And then there's the portfolio course, PLA 300, and that becomes important. It's a college option course. So if you need, most students need at least 6 credits of college option, so that helps to fill that. And there are a few majors in which COM 210, well, I'll talk that in the portfolio, but there are a few, there's a liberal study majors, liberal arts majors, have to take PLA 300 or INT 450, so you want to know about that now. And the most popular class that people do a portfolio for winds up being another college option course or a course in a couple of majors. So I'll go over that in a second. So exams, and this is kind of the one that becomes very, very popular. Basically, what we've done is we take exams by these providers, CLEP, Sailor, BYU Language, or you'll hear what people call FLATS, and DSST. And what we do is we take those exams and we find the equivalent, meaning if you take the exam and you pass the exam, what would you be awarded credit for on your transcript at SPS? And it comes in that sometimes it will be awarded direct course credit. So, for instance, in the example on your screen, if you took the Business 101 Sailor Introduction to Business exam, you pass it, on your transcript, it will say you have the equivalent of Business 200. So it'd be just like you took that course. For other places, it would be, it's oftentimes will be something that would be in a pathways course. So let's say you need 3 more credits of life and physical sciences, then you could take the introduction to molecular cellular biology. But there are places, and we don't have an equivalent course, but it fits into that pathways course. And then there are other courses that would just say like general elective, and that would go into that big general elective bucket. But you can look at all of the lists. I'll go over the end of this presentation. We'll kind of show you the links where you can find all of this. The equivalencies are on our website. So you can literally look down the list, see what courses you need or areas you need, and just find the exams. There have been a lot of questions about Sailor because there's a 1 credit college success course that's talked about in orientation. All of these exam providers allow for remote proctoring, which means you can sit at home, you take the test kind of on your time. You have to set up a proctoring relationship with them. So that means, you'd have to figure out what you need to do. And the cost differs a little bit. Sailor, the cost to be proctored for those exams is actually $5. It's $5 for the college access. It's $5 for a 3 credit exam. And the way the Sailor exams are going to work is when you go to their website for all the Sailor courses, you would scroll down to the bottom of those courses and you'll see 2 things. You'll see something that says, if you just want to get a free certificate, and what you do is we use those as practice exams. So you might want to take that, you do it for free, and it gives you an idea of what's going to be on the test. What is the test like? Those aren't proctored, but it just gives you an idea of what does this test look like. When you get ready to take a Sailor exam, right below that it will say, basically, if you want to get the college credit for this direct exam, then click here. You would click there, you set up your proctoring, you pay your $5, and then you wind up at a time that both you and the proctor have agreed on to take the exam, but it's $5. CLEP exams, there is a site called Modern States. I'll give you the link at the end where you can find more information about that, but basically you can take practice exams there for CLEP, and Modern States then will give you a voucher that pays for the exam. So you only have to pay for proctoring. So you can do those for less than $100. And the BYU language exams, you can earn up to 6 credits for a language exam. Those with proctoring cost about $90. And one thing that comes up with the BYU language exams is this. The BYU language exams basically are giving you credit for what would essentially be Language 101 and Language 102. What we have found is that students who know a language well that's other than English will oftentimes have gone to another school. That school gives you an exam, and instead of allowing you to go into a Spanish 101 course, they say, you know Spanish really well, they stick you in Spanish 201. And so what happens with that is you never got credit for Spanish 101 and 102, and we don't necessarily think that's fair. You shouldn't be penalized because you know a second language really well. So if you've never gotten credit for a 101 or 102 language, even if you've gotten credit for 201, 301, whatever, you can do our BYU language exams and get credit for those. The BYU language exams, they have about 50, 60 languages. So most likely, if you know a language other than English, they will have that. And then DSST, I think runs a little less than 100. But between all of those, you can do your entire pathway courses with nothing but these exams. I will show you later, you can do an entire business minor with nothing but exams. You can do half a business degree with nothing but these exams. You could do your entire electives if you needed to with nothing but these exams. Um, and just because a question came up, I just saw it pop up. Um, these dates for these exams, you basically, I'll show you a link to our education page, which explains more about how all these exams work. But basically, there's an outside evaluator that's the same for all of these. And they evaluate them on a 4 or 5 year cycle. Most often, when that cycle runs out, they've reevaluated them. 95% of the time, the exams will come back. There just may be like a month or 2 month period in between. Um, but basically, you know, we look at you taking the exams, lots of times work really well when you're in between. You're a summer, you aren't taking courses. You're taking 2 courses, but you don't quite know when you have time to study, so you can kind of study on and off depending on how that course goes. Um, but that basically is a very kind of rapid fire way the exams work. Um, Pre-evaluated credential and licenses. We have a lot of them. It's worth looking at them on our website. And like I say, the link would be on our CPL page for non-collegiate learning. Um, there, um, all the exams are multiple choice. Someone just asked that, and I'll just say that real quick. The exams are multiple choice, except there's one essay part for one of the college composition exams, but otherwise they're all multiple choice. Um, so basically, look at these credentials, see if you have something, particularly if you're in information systems. Um, those are going to have, the CompTIA exams, and a lot of those exam certifications you'll get credit for. Um, Other credentials is kind of our catch-all phrase. Definitely look into that. You may have something. It can have everything from real estate license to the NYPD. And the other thing that two that are really important for everybody here is CPR with first aid. You can be awarded 3 credits for that. It has to be, it has to be at least a hybrid model of in-person and online, but there has to be an in-person component. We have the information about that on our website. But basically, it's like adult pediatric CPR, first aid, 3 credits. If you're a health services major, it can be an elective for that. For everybody else, it's basically a free elective. But we find a lot of people do that CPR because they just need 3 credits. They have 117 credits. They need 3 more general elective credits, CPR. Then the last one, the Google professional certificates. Google has a number of certificates. Oftentimes their course, it will be 6 to 8 courses. They tell you that it will take 6 months to do one. It doesn't take 6 months to do one. You can go through them fairly rapidly. I've done a couple of certificates, many of us at SPS have. They aren't necessarily easy, but it won't take you 6 months. They say it takes 6 months if you're spending 2 hours or an hour a week on them. I'll put it that way. But for instance, those are really worth. If you're an information systems major, there's several of those that will do the information systems. Someone just put in the chat that they did the Google project management in 3 weeks. That is actually a really good certificate. The Google project management is, now I'm thinking off the top of my head, it's either 9 or 12 credits. I have it on another slide. But so you can do these Google certificates, do a project management, you have the Google certificate, you put it on your resume, and then you're awarded 9 to 12 credits for that. So those Google certificates are a way to really get a lot of credits fairly quickly. And for information system majors, you can do almost, I think about a third or 40% of your degree with these Google certificates. So those are really definitely worth looking into. We actually have free licenses for those. So you can reach out to the PLA department. We'll have that information at the end, and we can give you a license. It works for all of these Google certificates, and you can do them for free. So you are really out nothing. And one question that comes up is what happens if you take an exam and you don't pass it? We will say, we're sorry, try again. Doesn't go in your transcript. We only put on your transcript if you pass an exam. We only put on a transcript if you give us a certification. Let's say you start doing the Google certificate, you have one of our free licenses, it's taking you longer than you thought, or you decide, I don't have time right now, nothing happens. So there is no downside to you trying some of these things. We only put something on your transcript if you pass. The way we work with these is, I'm just going to go through these. Let me go back then. There are a couple of sites. The big one is American Council on Education. They are this well-known provider who evaluate a lot of credentials. It's one of the places we look to see if it's been evaluated. NCCRS is a thing that usually is more for New York State. They do evaluate credentials as well. If something has been evaluated for credit on one of these websites, we it may be eligible for credit. We take that into consideration, but we just because they have evaluated something and they say it's equivalent to a certain amount of credit, we can't necessarily award credit for that. It's a whole long process, bureaucracy partly. But it at least gives us a footing to sometimes make an argument. And there have been times where students are like, hey, I have this certification. One of them those things evaluated it, and we're like, great. And I can kind of go through and get the process and have it awarded credit. So it's definitely worth looking on those websites. Again, this information is on another website I'll show you at the end. Because if it's on there, then there's at least a fighting chance sometimes that we can do so. So, benefits of CPL, reducing your education costs, right? So you take a flats language exam, I have $50, it's 90, but your total tuition savings would be $1,830. You do 3 Sailor exams for 15, you do one Sailor exam for $5, you save $915. You do the Google Project Management, our free license means it doesn't cost you a thing. You earn 9 credits, so you just save $2,745. So this is a way that you can really save a lot of money fairly quickly. The one thing about CPL is it doesn't apply toward your financial aid time. So if financial aid says you need to take 6 credits, CPL cannot be used toward those 6 credits. It's not fair. We all understand that, but that's kind of the way it is. So if you need to take 12 credits, just know you need to take 12 credits in class, but CPL can be used so that down the road, maybe you don't have to take 12. You can save a term or two. So this is how you can this is what I mean when you can fast track. So a lot of students, believe it or not, most of the students at SPS are part-time students because you're all adults. You have full lives. Many people have, you have families, you have friends. There are things you want to do with your life. So a lot of students may only take 6 credits a term. That's all they can really handle, particularly if they're working full time and other things. So let's say you're at SPS, you take your 6 credits, 2 courses a term. Well, if you just took one flats language exam, that puts you 1 term closer to graduation. So you could be finished in the fall instead of having to come back in the spring. Let's say then you normally take 2 SPS courses and you decide to take your 1 flats exam and then you do 2 Sailor or CLEP exams. Just 2 exams. You've studied a little bit, you do 2 exams, you just saved yourself a year. So instead of saying, wow, I'm graduating in 2026, then maybe you're graduating in 2025. So let's say you are like, wow, this is really great. I did 2 exams. I did 1 language exam and I've saved a year. Now you go and you look and you say, wow, I'm going to do a Google Project Management certification in addition and do the CPR and get my CPR certification. I'll spend a couple of weekends and do the CPR. You now have saved yourself basically 2 years towards your graduation. So, and you could do the flats exam if you already know the language, you could do that this weekend. The sailor exams, let's say you study over Christmas or over the holidays in the winter, then suddenly that's pushed you. And then over that time, you spend the next 5 months doing the project management. You've just saved yourself very quickly 2 years. And the reason I say that is because I know what it's like when you feel like if you're only taking 3 or 6 credits a term, and you start looking at, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 7 years. It's going to take me 8 years. Is this worth it? Well, add in a few CPL here and there, and suddenly, instead of taking 6 years, you're like, wow, it takes me 4. You added another couple of CPL. Oh my gosh, it's only taking me 3. So you can really speed up that process. Um, this is something I talk about is I don't think students, you guys do not look at minors enough. Minors are only 4 courses. They look really, really good if you're going to graduate school, and they can look really, really good on a resume. So if you have 12 credits of those general electives where they are basically, we're just saying take whatever you can use it for a minor. So let's say you're a psychology major. You have 12 credits of general electives you still need to take. Make it a business minor. So now you can go to somebody and say, I have a degree in psychology with a minor in business, or I have a degree in human relations with a minor in business. Um, so a lot of these things, you might as well, pad your transcript when you're graduating with us, pad your resume. But as you can see, with a business minor, you have to do like, I think it's business 200, then you can just do any of the 3 courses. All of them are exams. So you literally could do, and look at that. If you did sailor exams, you could do a business minor 4 courses for $20. So that's the other thing when you're thinking about some of this, you can think about if you want to do a minor and how all this fits in. Because like I said, CPL can be a really good way to have things on your resume. You have a certification, a job may want to see a certification. Your youth studies major, they may want to see that you have a CPR license. So a lot of this can, work well. You want to get an information systems minor, you can do that through exams and credentials. So for instance, with information systems, here are a few of the courses you need. And as you can see, if you did a Google IT support professional certificate, it gives you it's 12 credits, but it gives you 3 courses. That one certificate, you get credit for 3 different courses with that. So there are a lot of different ways you can use exams with certifications, and particularly with Google certificates. Flexibility, like I said, it allows you to study around your classes, and we all know what that's like. So you have a break in between terms, good time to study for a class. We also know that there's some terms that you're taking 2 classes and you're like, wow, I really know these. This is not as bad as I thought. I have this extra time. Use that time for certification. Use that time for studying for exam. Um, or it may be that you're going into something, you're like, I really want to do 9 credits term, but I'm only going to take 2 courses, and you wind up having 2 courses, and one of them is a math course, and you're just like, wow, this is taking a little more time than I thought. So I'm going to put this exam, I can put this on the back burner until this kind of my courses get over. So it allows you to take and earn credits around your life, and keep things going. Discuss this, personalized learning and skill development. You may need CPR because of what your human services, you're doing youth studies, CPR can look good on your resume. You're going into something, an information system certificate, CompTIA, something works well. You're wanting to move up your job, maybe a Google project management certificate works well. I was actually on a panel for the people at Google who develop all these certificates, and someone on the panel with me during COVID time, she had lost her job. She was looking to get something else, and she started doing the Google Project Management certificate. What she found was in her job before she had gotten laid off, um, she was doing project management. The problem was she just didn't have something that says definitively, I know how to do project management. The other thing that it helped her with is you get a lot of these. The Google certificates are really good because they will also help you understand questions that are going to be asked in an interview with any of these. And like with the project management, they'll give you a lot of the templates in the language you need. So for this person, this woman, she was able to use the templates from the class. And when she went into a job interview and they asked her how she would set up running a project, she already had these templates ready to go and just fill them in. And it was actually that kind of got her the job. So think of how also, what are you wanting to do with your career? And can CPL be a way that helps you in your career and helps you get your degree? Because that is really, really, we love when that happens. TLA 300. There's a lot of confusion about the course. A lot of schools will sit there and basically kind of say, write a big paper about every job you've ever had, and then we're going to somehow award you some credit, maybe. We don't quite know how we're going to award it, and you won't ever understand the process. And that is not best practices. The way our PLA course works and our program works is you basically are creating a portfolio for a specific course. And what I mean by that is you look at the courses you need for your degree and you say, for instance, the most popular course to do a portfolio for is COM 210, Writing in the Workplace. And you say, I'm a journalist, I've been writing, or I'm an administrative assistant, I've been writing my whole life. There's a woman who owned a beauty salon and she was having to write things to her customers, write things to her employees. So you sit there and you go, why should I have to take a course if I already know this information? I already know these learning outcomes. So what PLA 300 does and the way our portfolio process works is you create a portfolio for a specific class. So you would create a portfolio for COM 210 and you would basically write about your experience that explains the learning outcomes kind of in the real world and how you learned that information. Then, if your portfolio is assessed and you pass that, you would be awarded credit for COM 210. So that's the way the portfolios work. So it's not just, I have all of this life experience. It's your life experience connected to a course we offer. And so the way this works is PLA 300, you have to take that to then submit a portfolio. But that's a good thing because if you're a liberal studies student, you have to take it for your major. And for everybody else, it's also a pathways course, so you have to take something. And PLA 300 is pass fail, and that actually can be really helpful. But the course, it's 7 weeks, even in the fall and the spring. So for some people, that's good because that means you have the rest of the term to concentrate on your other courses. But what you're doing is you would speak to Sydney in the CPL department. She will give you a little more. And so what happens with this is she will make sure you have a course match. There's a course you can fit. If you can fit COM 210, we usually will recommend that to everybody. If you have general electives, we have an option for that will work. So we won't get into what that is. But if you have general electives, you're golden with PLA 300. But you have to have something to write your portfolio about. So you take the course. I taught it this summer. I usually teach in the summers. I'll also be teaching it this fall. And what we'll do is we will, in that course, everybody works on their individualized portfolio. So I will teach you how to write the portfolio kind of in the way we do it at SPS to give you the best chance of having one that will be assessed for credit. And so what will happen is you'll take PLA 300, you will be working on a portfolio. When you finish the course, you'll really only have maybe like a first draft. You'll have like a solid first, a second draft. You will pass the course. I want everybody who takes PLA 300 to pass the course. It's a pass-fail course. Pass it. You will then have your 3 credits for PLA 300. That counts toward your financial aid because it's an actual in it's online but in-person course. So you will have your PLA 300 course. At that point, there are a handful of people who are like, I don't want to continue writing my portfolio. I'm just done. I just need my PLA 300 and I'm just going on with my life. Or something's happened. I've decided I'm getting married and I don't have time right now. Fine. Understand you pass PLA 300, you get the credit for that. But after the class ends, you can continue and you will continue working on your portfolio. We usually suggest people try to finalize it within the 6 months, otherwise people just kind of forget what they were doing. But what you would do is you would reach out to the instructor, in this case it would be me, and you could reach out to me a month, 2 months, 3 months after the term ends, and I'll help you get the work with you on every learning outcome, finalize your portfolio. Your portfolio mainly is a big paper, 12 to 18 pages usually. At that point, it would go to Sydney. Sydney's a second set of eyes. She will look, she knows what the assessors are looking for. She will give you feedback. We're going to give you more feedback than you will ever know. And if you listen to us, you will have a portfolio that will be assessed for credit 90% of the time. At that point, no cost to you. We pay for an assessor. SPS pays for that. They will assess it and they will then say whether or not it should be granted credit. So you would take PL 300. You do not register for nor take the course you're writing a portfolio for. So if you're wanting to do a portfolio for COM 210, you would just take PLA 300, write a portfolio for COM 210, never take the COM 210 class. That portfolio will be assessed, and if it's assessed for passing, then you would get credit for COM 210. So that's kind of the way it works. And literally, most people will come in and say, I need 6 credits of college options and do PLA 300 and write the portfolio for COM 210. Or like I said, we have an option for people if you need general electives. You can write about. So, but those are kind of the two. But if you take COM 210, you cannot do a portfolio for COM 210. So that's why we kind of say everything now so people can start making those choices. This isn't quite CPL, but it's under our department. We do have an internship course. The INT 450 can be taken for just college credit. If you're like a liberal studies major or it can be taken as part of your major. Business students can take it as part of an elective. It is now also can be used as a capstone course for health services students and also information system students. And the reason I somewhat also mentioned this is it's pass fail. We do run it fall, spring, and summer. A lot of people, ours, we do have a little tiny twist on it. We will work with you, but we allow you to do an internship at your own place of work. The difference is whatever you're doing has to be different than your job description. And so what people have done is oftentimes they will use this to work with their manager and do a special project or do something in another unit in order to get more experience or see if they actually want to move to that unit. But we do allow that flexibility and we'll work with you to kind of figure out how that might work. So you do not have to do, and honestly, very few of our students do that traditional internship where they're only doing the internship and they're being paid for that because most of you are already working. So that's how our internship works right now. How many CPL credits can you apply towards your degree? Sydney will help you with this. We have stuff online that will help you with this. Your advisors can help you with this. But basically, you need 120 credits for your undergraduate degree. At SPS, we have what's called a 15 credit residency program. Most colleges have 30, ours is 15. That means you have to take 15 credits of SPS courses, minimum. For most majors, there just aren't enough CPL options or courses that people transfer in. So it's not, we have very, very few students. I could probably count on one hand of people who only took 15 credits with us. But basically, you have to take 15 credits with us. So the most you can have with courses that you've transferred in toward your degree and CPL then is 105. So you take all the credits you transferred that count towards your degree. If something doesn't count towards your degree, don't worry about it. So let's say you transfer in an associate's and that's 60 credits that goes towards your degree. The 105 minus 60 is basically what would be left over. We have our a rule is you can have a maximum of 45 credits of CPL, but like everything else, we want to be more student centered. But we also don't want people doing things that they don't need to. So for most people, they won't even get to that 45. But if you work with city or you're working with your advisor or you're come up with your CPL plan and you go over and that 45 works, all you do is you reach out to us, reach out to me or Sydney, or reach out to your advisor or the Lana and Arthur, the transfer office, and we will take a look and see what you're doing, make sure you can apply it, make sure it will go toward your degree. And in cases, I can overrule that 45 credit limit. So the 45 is not a hard ceiling. That 45 is, we don't want you to be spending your time on something that's not going to get you to where you need to go. But the 105 is a hard ceiling. I cannot allow transfer plus CPL over that 105. That is out of my hands. So, basically look at CPL, start adding it in. But if you read on our side or someone says the 45 limit is there, then just talk to any of those of us. We're all kind of working together to help you. And if it works, I can raise that limit for you. So don't think of that as a hard cap. Like I said, CLEP, modernstates.org site. People use that so they can get a voucher for the exam. Sailor's really popular because it's $5. Um, with Sailor, I know, for instance, you can take a test up to 3 times. I think you have to wait 2 weeks in between. So if you take a Sailor exam under the direct credit, you pay your $5 and you missed a couple of questions, you don't quite have the 70% passing, you just wait a couple of weeks and you can take it again. And um, the BYU Flats language exams are really popular. Like I said, they're 50 or more of those, and general education. The language exams, I always forget this. They are general exams. They're made for general conversing. They are not linked to your degree. They aren't linked to academia. They aren't, if you know the language, you can pass those exams. They were made for conversing. They were made for natural language. They are not made to have anything to do with some weird terminology that no one's ever heard of, nor are they having anything to do with a specific degree. Credentials. If you brought something in to SPS, if it's on ACE, you can let us know. Google is incredibly popular. We can give you out free licenses. And the CPR is really popular. The thing with the CPR is either talk to your advisor or us to make certain you're doing the right one. We take it from 2 different places, but because it has to have pediatric and adult and CPR and AED, and it has to be some portion in person, and it has to be current, we just want to make certain that all those boxes are ticked. For portfolios, COM 210 for your PLA course or elective credit. And I keep saying this, but if you are a liberal studies student, you have to do INT 450 or PLA 300. And remember, when I said to do PLA 300, you have to be creating a portfolio. Even if you don't turn it in for credit, you have to be able to create a portfolio that could be used for credit. Whether or not you choose to do is another thing. So if you've taken COM 210 and you have no more general elective credit, there may not be anything that you can do a portfolio for. And so if you come to us and it's your last term, you can't take PLA 300. You would be having to figure out how to do INT 450, maybe even on your job. And we don't want to scramble when you're in your last term. We want you to get this out of the way early on. So if you're a liberal studies student, talk to Sydney like in the fall. so that you can figure out what you're doing, in particular if you want to do PLA 300, because like I said, we don't want you being in your last term and suddenly everybody's scrambling to try to fulfill this. Basically, how do you make a plan? Advisor can help. Sydney can really help, and I hate to say that, because her schedule's been jammed. So just know when you get finished with this, it may be a little while for her to be able to help you one-on-one. You can do some already yourself, um, but just give us the next month to kind of get through everybody. But basically, check your degree works. That's the first thing you want to do. Go into your degree works, see what you still need. Once you know what you need, then you can go back to the pages I'm about to show you and say, oh, I need business 200. These are the things that can fulfill that. Oh, I need project management 210. This is the option to fulfill that. So you can go in and say, okay, I can do either a Google certificate or I can do this certificate. I can do the Sailor exam or I can do a CLEP. And then you can start choosing what you want to do and kind of think in your head when you want to do them. And then the last part of that is you can always reach out to the CPL department. And, the easy thing can always be, here's your name, here's your CUNY First ID, and say, and I'm thinking of wanting to do these options to fulfill these things. And we can look at it and say, hey, that works. It's a good plan. Or we may look and say, hey, that works, but did you know there's also this option? So that's kind of it. Degree works, see what fulfills the things you need, and then figure out which ones you want to do. So where can you get more information? This is the big thing. PLA, email us. PLA@sps.cuny.edu. And if you've ever gotten an email from Sydney, or the PLA email address, it will have, if you need to make an appointment, click here and you make the appointment through your EOB. If you, and I just wind up having to search. So if you search CUNY SPS CPL, you will find the credit for prior learning page. Our SPS site, that credit for prior learning page is where you're going to have the equivalencies for everything. So that's really where you want to look to see what will match. Like, oh, I need Business 200, what else there? What we've also done to try to be more student-centered friendly and because to answer questions is Sydney has created pages in What's Education, which you will learn all about while you're here. I still have to search in Google SPS Education CPL and it comes up. But there are a lot of pages with that and it gives you a lot of answers to a lot of the questions you're already asking now. So there's frequently asked question pages, there are links to modern states, there's stuff about how do I study for exam, how do Sailor exams work. We have a page that Sydney, I say we, but it's really Sydney, keeps up with. And so as we are adding new exams or new certifications, or there's a new Google certificate we now will grant credit for, there she puts that on the list. She will also put on that list, remember as I said that the exams are evaluated by a third party, and when they go through that evaluation process, it will, the exams, we will take the exam whenever you took the exam. You took an exam back in 2016, we'll take the exam. But if the exam is outside of that evaluation period, they won't be offering the exam. And the reason I say that is Sydney keeps a list on there that will say, like, these exams, the evaluation runs out like December 31, 2024. If it's on that list, then you may, and you have a number of exams you're wanting to take, then you may just want to make those exams go to the top and say, oh, I'll take that exam first and then I can do these others later. But that will give you an idea if there's something coming up that you just need to do. Like I said, most of the time when those evaluations quote unquote run out, every once in a while they will get rid of an exam that isn't really common, but lots of times between the new evaluation coming in and if the exam provider has to make any slight changes to the exam, there may be like a 2-month window where the exams aren't available, and that can make a difference if you're looking to graduate, in the next month or two. But the education page will have what you need. And she's always adding information to it. So if there's like a general education page. So if you need your pathway courses, you can just go and see what exams fit in my pathways courses without having to look at each one individually. Um, but I would really, really recommend um, the education page because it will have a lot of information. It will say, here's the modern states, here's how to do Sailor, here's what's coming, here's how things fit. Um, so that's really kind of the other big piece. Um, so that ends my slide portion. And so what I'm going to do is, first of all, look at the questions that was sent before, and I'm going to answer these briefly, and then I'm going to look at some of these questions in the Q&A that people have been asking, um, and answer some of those courses. I apparently, my fault, gave the idea that the PLA is not an asynchronous course. Every course, all of our courses at SPS are asynchronous. So PLA is definitely asynchronous. The big thing I always kind of want to say with that, though, is the three things. One, it's a 7-week course, which can be good or bad. Two, it's pass fail. So that can actually be helpful that sometimes doing PLA 300 with something that may be a little more time consuming. And the third piece is you get credit for PLA 300 separate from your portfolio. And you can do the portfolio, you continue working on it after the course is over, so you don't have to have this big paper done in 7 weeks. Someone's asked a question about PLA 300. And I think I answered that question. There are a couple, and I've answered some of these questions, like when people say, I've been working in the field for a certain amount of time. What documents do you need from my employer to show I've worked for this amount of time or done these things? Like I said, we don't give credit for just life experience. We give credit for your skills and knowledge. And it's just like in a classroom. You think of a course as 15 weeks, but we aren't giving you credit for 15 weeks. We give you credit for showing that you have the knowledge and skills of the majority of the outcomes of that class. Because what we're saying is if you take this class, here are the outcomes. These are the things we want you to be able to know or do when you finish the class. Your assignments are really there to help you learn those skills or to help show us that you know those skills. So that is outside the realm of just working in a job or just doing something. So we don't just grant life credit. We don't have a way for you to just write a paper saying, I've been a manager for 20 years. If you've been a manager for 20 years, great. That means you probably should be able to pass that management exam really easily, or maybe you do a portfolio for the course. Answer the question. Um, Someone was asking again about internships and things. If you've already done an internship, you can't get credit for INT 450. Um, you have to be having your internship start somewhere around when the class starts. And one thing I didn't mention is you can actually take the internship for 2 or 3 credits. If you were doing a specialized project, so let's say there was a project you were doing that was like only 40 hours, then you could do the course for 5 weeks, and you could get 1 credit. So, and if you had a bigger project that was about 60 hours, you get 2 credits. And so you can kind of do it that way. And you can take INT 450 more than one time, meaning you can earn up to 6 credits by taking it over and over. Someone asked about, there were always questions about how do you get credit for a LinkedIn course, a Coursera course, or something else. If it's not on our website, if it is not on the SPS CUNY CPL page, you don't get credit. We have one of the biggest buckets of CPL within CUNY. We have evaluated over 1,000 different pieces because some of the like defense languages are insanely long. But there's a very specific process that we have to go through, and it can take anywhere from 3 months to 9 months. Sometimes we have to pay an expert, so it can cost us 3 to $15,000 to evaluate something sometimes. Um, so um, we don't necessarily, and there's certain standards we have to meet with different things. And I know sometimes it may look, well, you're doing credit here. How come I can't get credit over here because these look the same? There's a lot of background stuff that goes on with CPL. All I can tell you is our program is probably one of the biggest. Our SPS has won awards for the CPL program, and we are trying to add to it as much as we can. But um, if it's not on our webpage, we can't grant credit for you. Um, so that's kind of that. So that's where we're always saying check with one of us before you go off and say, oh, if I just do this LinkedIn course, it's called management, I can get credit for it. No. If it's not on our page, no. But that's also because we're trying to add to it so much. Um, that's why you can look on that education page because it may be that something isn't granted credit and you may look in 2 months, oh, you may see something go, oh, wow, that's new. I didn't know you could have credit for that. So that may be something like that. Someone asked, is the PLA 300 course difficult? Difficult. And it may depend on who's teaching it. If I'm teaching it, I want you to pass the course. And so I'm going to do everything I can to support you, but you need to go and turn in the work. There is I don't want to say quite a bit of writing, but there is some writing in the course, and the course builds upon itself. So the issue is the assignments in PLA 300. I'm teaching you how to do this portfolio. So for instance, one week you may be writing about skills. Then another week you're taking outcomes and it's a very specific template you're working with, and you're saying this is like comp to 10. One of the outcomes is understanding audience and why, and I'm making the outcome bad, but it's like what is an audience and why is it important? And what you're doing is you're writing just some simple sentences of what does that outcome mean? What have you done that would relate, that shows how you know what an audience is? For me, for instance, it would be one of the examples I use is when I was doing marketing years ago for a certificate program, and I was meeting with a marketing director, and she kind of told me about audience, and then later I've used that same idea with different things. So you do this template which says, here are the experiences, and then there will be a week where we're going and we're kind of saying, how do you look upon academic theories? And then there's a week we'll talk about um, documentation. And then there's a week where you'll write a couple of the outcomes and I'll give you feedback. So um, it's certainly not as difficult as some of the other courses. There is some writing. So you have to be comfortable with writing. But people find when they come out of the course that they get a lot more out of it than just PLA 300. We will actually even talk about how you will use some of the techniques we're doing for portfolio writing for job interviewing, for instance. Same techniques. Um, if you have done something, like you say, oh, I didn't realize I could get credit for some of these Google certificates. Like I did a Google PMP, project management. I didn't know I could get credit. Yeah, you can get credit. Start turning these things in. And we will get them on, and our transfer department will get them on your transcript. Um, someone asked, how long does it take? Um, what happens is once it gets to the SPS transfer department, they usually will get things in about 48 hours. Then it takes 24 to 48 hours for degree works to kind of get itself going again. Sometimes it can take a week to get something on a transcript, and that's usually just because we get hammered. So, for instance, right now, everybody works as much as they can to get every single thing you've done on your transcript so that you aren't ever taking a course that you've already gotten credit for. So there is that. Um, Someone asked, and this is a good question, and I know we're just about running out of time, how difficult are the exams? It depends. It, exams aren't what's what I'm saying this? Exams are basically as difficult as how much you know the material. And like a molecular biology exam is difficult for most people because they have not had a molecular biology course. And so if they start studying for it, they're starting from ground zero. A history course of the US says, the 1800s is not as difficult because a lot of people have had something in a history course from high school, or maybe they've just watched one too many History Channel courses. So when they start studying about it, they already know some material. But this is why we say for CLEP and Sailor, those are two really good things because with CLEP, you can go to the Modern States site and you don't even have, they'll have so much study material that can be overwhelming. So just kind of ignore the study material at first. And you can just jump in and they will have quizzes you can take. And so you can get an idea of what it's like. They will have they have a practice CLEP exam. So you can go in and get an idea of what the questions are like. For Sailor, like we say, they have two things on those pages. For every what's called a direct credit exam at Sailor, they have a free certificate, non-proctored. You can go and take that once a week. We always suggest go in and take that, see what it's like. No one knows. It's free. So you can take that, get an idea of what the questions are like. How are they worded? So for instance, when I was looking at the organizational behavior, a lot of those, there was some terminology, but at least half the exam questions were actually more giving like were not strictly what you would think of as theory. They were throwing three into practice. So it would kind of give a little scenario and then you would answer a question about it. But if you did that first, then you would have an idea of how to study. And that's why we say for Sailor, do that free certificate exam, see what you already know, see what they're kind of looking for. Then you can go back and study. And Sailor has study materials for free on their website, but this gives you an idea of what you do or don't know. And then, like I said, you get, like we say, three chances. So worst case scenario is go in, study for a while, take that certificate. If you hit 70%, pay $5, take the Sailor direct credit exam. You may get right over the 70% grade. If you don't, then you have an idea of what you need to study, and you have two more times you can take the exam. But the college success is a really, really good one. It gives you one credit, and it gives you an idea of, it's kind of a low stakes exam. A lot of the college success, I'm telling you guys, between orientation and just what you know from already being in college, you will do well. But it gives you an idea of how does the proctoring work? What is it like taking a test that's being proctored? What is it like doing a multiple choice exam when I'm timed? I get a little nervous. So do the college success for $5 and it kind of just lets you, it's kind of like doing that walkthrough before you have to, get out on a bigger stage. Um, we've discussed what the out of pocket is for the exams. Um, and like I say, with the Sailor exams, Sailor has a number of courses and these free certificates. We don't give credit for everything on the Sailor exam. We only grant credit for what are called direct credit courses. And those have to be proctored. And those are the ones that we also list on our website as having credit. So I think I've kind of gone over. I'm just glancing at the rest of the questions that people have asked. Um, Particularly, like I said, if you need electives, you can do so many CPL. Electives, do it as a minor or just, start doing some of the Google certificates because it looks good on your resume. If you need any pathway courses to finish up, you can do that. You need 6 credits of college options, PLA 300, COM 210. You can do that. If you're an information systems major, definitely look because between Google certificates and a couple of other things, you can knock off years in your degree. If you're a business major, you can knock off like all of your electives and half your courses with exams. So there's that. For other majors, you don't have, like if you're a psychology major, the courses are so specific that other than like Psych 101, if you're psychology or sociology, Sociology 101, Psych 101, a lot of the other courses, there just aren't exams because the exams are supposed to be general that a lot of people can use. But I did a study a couple years ago, and psych majors were one of the groups that used CPL the most. And what they were doing was using it for their pathway courses and their electives, so they could just spend their time on the major courses. And they were finishing fast because of that. So just because you don't have it for your major courses, for many of you, you still need those other pieces because you still need 120 credits. You can fit CPL into it. So I have gone um, 3 minutes over, and uh, I think I've answered most of the questions. But so just remember, look in your degree works. Don't think of it as, and I know we've said majors, but pretend I didn't say major. Just go in and see what you need. Then go to our website, see what we have that will slot into that. And whenever we add something new, we are adding it to the website as well. So that website is up to date. The CPL, the SPS CPL website will be up to date as we add things. So go in there, look and see what we have available for a class or for what you need. Um, because we're constantly kind of adding and we're looking and we're also trying to find out what is also be used for people out in the field. Um, so that's it. Sorry I ran a little bit over. I think we answered all the questions. Please look at the education page. Please look at our CPL page. Write to the PLA email address. Just know it may take a little while to get back because when I say we, I mean Sydney, gets inundated. I will help her with some of the emails, but basically it's just inundated after these webinars and right before the term. But we will go through things as kind of as quickly as we can. So thanks everybody for joining. And hopefully you have learned something and we will want to help you. And everyone go and do that college success with Sailor, just to give you an idea of what it's like to take an exam and get your credit. And we'll see you guys at the next orientation webinar.